Happy Wealth Wednesday. Bec, it's such a pleasure to chat with you here. We've been doing some amazing collaborations on all things women and onboarding, and I can't wait to share your story. I would love to kick off with just a quick overview of yourself, where you're from, and what you're up to.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Um, so yeah, I'm Bec Jones. I'm building a cryptocurrency wallet called Clutch. It is a next generation wallet ecosystem that is marketed towards women and helping them on board into Web3. Um, you asked kind of where I came from as well. Yeah, the background. Yeah, the background is the finance kind of banking background, which I think at the time when crypto was introduced to me, and kind of early on, what the use case of blockchain technology was going to do was at a time in Australia where the banking industry was going through a Royal Commission. And as I learned about the values and the use cases of this new technology against the backdrop of what was happening in Australia in banking and finance, it was a very natural fit that this was kind of going to be the evolution. And I was really excited to position myself and build within a space that was kind of new and innovative. So that was the backdrop of kind of getting me into this world. And I'm excited to kind of have moved from working into it with a couple of other companies to now building something myself, which has been really fun.
I love that. And so you started to touch on the background a little bit, but I'm curious if you could share more about how and why you got into your space, why wallets and crypto.
Totally. So I spent two or 3 years in like a CMO role. I worked with a social media application which paid its users in crypto, and then I worked for a DeFi trading app that was an anonymous company. And I think the experience across both of those companies had me kind of questioning the participation of women. And the reason for that was I looked at the investors that were investing in these companies, and I looked at the users of our products, and I started gaining exposure to who was building in the industry, and going to conferences and things like that, and noticing that women's representation and adoption was drastically different to that of their male counterparts. And so really started thinking on that access problem and that representation problem, and asking myself, at what point of an onboarding cycle are people getting stuck, and where could I innovate on that experience? And the way that we're building the product at the moment is very much with this mindset of recreating that person that sits next to you when you get onboarded. And so many people have that experience of like, my girlfriend sat me down, or this person sat me down, and they explained to me what a wallet was, and they showed me where to download it from, and they answered all the questions as I've onboarded into the world of crypto. And that so often is through a wallet, as it's one of those spaces that you need to have to hold your investments, and now to kind of purchase them as well, you have that functionality. So that was the reasoning behind the focus on women, and in particular the innovation around the wallet, because it's one of those kind of early stage user experiences and products that we found people were getting kind of stuck on, and we felt that we could really open up in terms of experience.
I love that. So it touches perfectly into this idea of like, what role do you play in the wealth space, and why do you think it's important?
Yeah, I think the wealth space for women is such a massive opportunity, which obviously you kind of share with me in regards to what you guys are building at Eve Wealth. But it's just acknowledging that I think women have had a very different experience with money. We've had very different roles in families, different roles in businesses, different access to wealth. And so as it feels like a new era and a new coming of women, really coming into their power, coming into opportunity and access to wealth, it opens up this conversation around how we can educate, support, and kind of empower them to come into their own. And so, for us, it's very much around building a product that helps women develop wealth in the space of digital currencies and cryptocurrencies, where there's so much opportunity at the moment.
Absolutely. It's huge. It's an absolutely huge problem and an opportunity. I'm curious, what do you think has been the most exciting thing you've learned in this journey that you would want others to know?
Most exciting thing I've learned, I think more recently, like watching what's going on in the world with regards to, Ukraine and Russia, and then also watching what happened in Canada with protests kind of a month or so ago, opened up this conversation around asset ownership and what it means to actually own your investments, your currencies, the assets that you hold. And not to kind of bang on about it too much, but in Canada, there was this situation where there was activist protesters that were not wanting to be vaccinated. And I won't kind of comment on what side of the fence I need to sit on here, but the base kind of issue that came out of this was that the government stopped access to certain individuals' funds, their banking accounts, and also their cryptocurrency accounts that were sitting with centralized exchanges and centralized products. And as that happened in this kind of democratic country, there was this kind of bigger conversation around like, wow, that can actually happen. Like I don't actually have full control over like what I've built in terms of wealth and my assets. And then I think you can look to a country like Russia at the moment, who is going through a terrible war with a dictator and someone who's making decisions that's affecting the wealth and the asset ownership of the people that live in that country that might not necessarily follow with what that individual's doing. And so having those assets like tied into government structures and people that have those levels of control, I think opens up a larger conversation around asset ownership. And I think that blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies in particular have given us another avenue that mitigates some of that risk and gives us some of that access back a bit more freely. So I think that's probably like one of the most interesting areas I'm finding and learning about and trying to kind of develop my information and education around at the moment.
It's such an exciting insight and very interesting, because I think you probably know this more than anyone as you're working on the onboarding into wallets. There's this fear of self-custody, probably in more the Western world, where there are banks and those banks have been bailed out and there's insurance and this feeling of security. Why would I ever want to like self-custody or have to like hold a seed phrase somewhere offline that I could lose and no customer support? But then when you have these lived experiences of great case studies of why self-custody is powerful, that's sort of what can help take to the next level. And we saw that in so many different applications in crypto, like QR codes. Nobody was using QR codes. And then coronavirus helped kind of really usher that as a technology. And then, that helps, I think, people even understand the concept of like an NFT, like a JPEG with information in it. It's a QR code. Right? So there's so many things that you share that are really resonating. I'm curious, so you obviously inspire me a lot, and I would love to hear if there's a person or a company that's inspiring you right now and why.
Thank you. Yes. There's a couple. My mind kind of boggles with a few. In terms of a group, I think, actually, no, I'll start with the individual first. Melton Demours is like one of the icons for me that I kind of followed really early on Twitter. She's a big commentator, advocate. She's helped with a lot of the regulation and I guess just opening up of the industry. And so she's an icon for me, and someone that kind of continues to contribute to the space and fly the flag. And in terms of a group, I would probably say Des Femmes is a really good one. Lee Kewen, who built out that network, I think it's probably like 700 women strong now. Was quite early on in kind of bringing women together as we don't have a word for it yet, but there was like DeFi summer, and I feel like there was some coming together of women at the midway of last year, and there needs to be like a name for it, because as that happened, there was like all the NFT projects that started building out. There's all these new companies that are run and led by women that are focusing in the crypto world. And so I feel like we need a term for that. But that was when I came across Lee and Des Femmes and the network that they had built of all women professionals building in the space, bringing them together, connecting them to one another, helping with opportunities, and building out a media arm that kind of covered women in this world. So yeah, that would be the company.
I love it. And what advice would you give to somebody getting started?
I think, and this is probably more tailored towards women at the moment. The advice is around everyone kind of enters, I think, through like a door when they come into the into this world. And there are a lot more doors that are opening up now. You know, traditionally it was this door of the beginning of blockchain and learning about Satoshi Nakamoto and kind of entering through, you know, this traditional route of like how finance is changing and then DeFi. And the NFT door has provided a much more like palatable door that makes a lot more sense and feels a lot more friendlier, and I feel like has like a stronger community around it. But I think part of my advice would be, if you have come through that door, to like make sure you're understanding and getting across some of like the core concepts around this industry and what it's built on, and making sure you're not missing out on like having access early to the world of NFTs, but not necessarily participating in some of the foundational like technologies or other investment opportunities, like basic blockchains, for example. And I know that from like my own personal experience of having access to this industry and coming across, you know, different opportunities and not taking the time to necessarily understand them because I was like solely focused on my one little alley. And then feeling like a couple of years later, like, damn, I knew about that. I read about it. I went to the conference. I saw the person. I interacted with that business, and kind of not taking up on that opportunity. That's a current piece of advice that I've been thinking of.
I love that. Just understanding even the foundations can help you see the next opportunities and the
Yes,
where the world can be going after NFTs, for example, or expanding on
yes,
NFTs.
absolutely.
So where can we follow you and Clutch, and how can we keep in touch on your journey?
Sure. We have a Discord community that is up and running. We have a Facebook group as well for people that don't necessarily want to live in Discord. It can be a little bit noisy. We're going to start running webinars as well, which you can sign up for through our website, www.clutchwallet.xyz, that are going to provide like an hour-long introduction into the world of Web3. And then I'm on TikTok as well, cryptobec_. So there's lots of different spaces. So just pick which one that you'd like to connect on.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bec, for coming and sharing, for being a female founder in this space, and for just being such a great inspiration. It's been amazing to chat, and we'll definitely be keeping in touch on your
Thank you
journey.
for holding the space, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.